All right, so computer security, as I'd mentioned, is a wide concept. Normally, we talk about IT security. We also refer to it as cyber security. We can also refer to it as ICT security. But I know the well-known term is cyber security, right? Ideally, when we talk about computer security, it is just one of the elements within the cyber security. We're going to look at other cyber security elements that you need to understand, and we realize that you need to secure the computer first. You need to secure the applications. You need to secure the network. You need to secure. You need also to secure the users, right? Because you are the person who is interacting with the computer, so you need to also to be secure. We also need to secure the data. That is the information data, right? So there are very many angles towards security when it comes to computer. So we're just going to look at the fundamentals as I've already mentioned, right? So you can look at the term security or computer security or cyber security as a concept of protecting computer systems, either from theft, damage, any malicious doing, or what people want to maybe do to harm us, right? Computer security can be able to secure us. And when you talk about harming us, you need to look at your connection between the how you connect with the computer, right? Of course, you store your data there, right? If you look at maybe the various social media platforms, when you share your information, someone can use that particular information even to physically harm you offline, right? So it's very, very important that we understand the concept of computer security. All right, so we can talk about cybersecurity, which also refers to the protection of hardware, software, and data from attackers. Now, these are the major elements that cybersecurity seek to maybe help us understand, like information security, network security, application security, end user education, business continuity planning. Now, what are these? What are these? Now, information security, for instance, the data or the information you share, right? So if you share this information and it gets into the wrong hands, let's say the hands of the hackers, right? They can use this particular information to cause a lot of damage. So this information could be your bank information. They could be very vital, right? So it is upon us to ensure that our information is very, very secure. And of course, network. We looked at the concept of computer network. And we need to secure our devices. We need to use secure protocols, right? The medium that we use, it could be the cables, it could be the radio waves. I mean, we need to ensure that the information, or rather whatever data is passed within the network, is actually not interfered with, right? And of course, the application. You normally use the OC, for example, yeah, the online campus. Now, if, for example, you don't protect the OC, and that's why I think, yeah, for you to be able to access it, you need to have your email address. So if you don't protect this OC, chances are someone can delete all the information that we have there. So we need to ensure that the applications that we use are actually secure. Better still, the users need to be educated. A user who doesn't have the correct information can always do wrong things, right? So it's up to us at individual level or within the organization level to ensure that the users are well trained and educated, especially in terms of maybe using the network devices, using the various applications. And better still, just to identify maybe the malicious softwares that can be downloaded. Yeah, so simple practices such as using strong passwords. Don't click on links that you don't know. Visit websites that are secure. Those are some of the educations that you can always reinforce on a user. Now, the other element of cybersecurity. Now, let's assume things go haywire or the hackers manage to hack into our systems, are we able to proceed with the normal business operation, for example? So this calls upon us to have the right response plans, incident plans, disaster plans. So we talk about disaster recovery, incident recovery, so that if something happens, we can always proceed with a normal business operation, right? So you don't want like a case of a bank, right? If normally we say banks are the most affected organizations because people target money, so you realize that banks are often hacked, right? But what they need to do so that they proceed with their normal business operation is to have some business continuity plans in place, so that in case of any hack or attack, they can always proceed their businesses. So the benefits of cybersecurity are quite numerous. I've just singled out a few. Of course, you have seen to protect you as the end user, to protect the organization from malicious programs such as ransomware, malwares, and so on. We're going to look at a few of these. And of course, to protect our data, our networks, to help us increase our recovery time, right, after a particular kind of attack. And better still, to prevent us from unauthorized users. So when we talk about unauthorized, this is a term that's actually associated with a lot of computer security, because anything that is not authorized, it could be an application, it could be a user, it could be a device, right? It should not have the right permission. If it doesn't have the right permissions to access, be it the network of organization, it is unauthorized device. It should be an authorized user. For example, if it's a RIARA, if you are not a RIARA student, you are not authorized to use maybe the RIARA Wi-Fi, for instance. So, talking about unauthorized access, this is a term that allows us to maybe understand that this could be malicious software that is not authorized to access, maybe to access our network or data. This could be the devices, just the same thing I've mentioned, right? Or using other people's account details to log in, right? Hacker is also a term that is often used. Now, we have different categories of hackers, right? We have black hat hackers, gray hat hackers, we have white hackers, and of course, we can separate these into two main types of hackers, like the illegal hackers and the ethical hackers. But we are going to just look at the bad hacker who happen to be illegal, right? So a hacker or an illegal hacker is someone with malicious intention, that they practice some form of attack with malicious intention, maybe to get money. Some do it for fun. There are quite a number of reasons that someone can hack into your system, right? On the other hand, we have the good hacker, the ethical hacker, and that's why sometimes you realize that people normally attend ethical hacking courses, right? So that you have some kind of a well-equipped skills of how you can be able to manage or counter the hackers, right? Threat, I look at it as a conducive environment, right, that allows a hacker to practice their hacking. For example, at home, if you don't secure your doors, if I use a weak padlock, that is a threat, right? So it's something that might lead into compromising the security of our system, for instance, right? Then you have vulnerability. These are the weaknesses of a system. So people develop softwares, for example. If we don't develop the right softwares and a hacker gets a chance to look at our softwares, then they can always use those particular weakest links or the weaknesses within a system. We have different vulnerabilities that we're going to talk about. Human beings are also vulnerable. You yourself. For example, if you lack education or proper training, right, a hacker can trick you into providing crucial information. So you can be vulnerable. right? A system can also be vulnerable. For example, if you don't lock the system, for example, we talk about physical vulnerability. So if someone just walks into a lab and picks away your laptop, that means that that's physical vulnerability. And of course, we have network vulnerability if we don't implement our networks well. So this actually is what we need to understand, how we can prevent this particular vulnerabilities. Attack is now the actual action, right? So if you hear that someone has attacked or a hacker has managed to hack into your Instagram account, for example, or into your Facebook account, then that is an attack. We normally say when vulnerability is accomplished together with threat, then attack is realized. So vulnerability together with threat is equal to attack. Other terminologies, there are quite a number. Of course, antiviruses, you know what these are. Anti-malwares, you have different types of these. Talk about we have Kaspersky, I don't know whether they're still there. We have AVG, Avast, there are quite a number. Now, it's very important to ensure that the system you're using has some kind of antiviruses. Now, these are just basic things that always we often overlook. But if you do some kind of background research and studies on how hackers manage to hack into systems, you realize that these systems don't have basics such as antivirus softwares, weak passwords, right, and so on. Social engineering is often a term also used in computer networks, computer security. This is the manipulation of your mind into providing confidential information, right? So if someone psychologically manipulates you into providing a sensitive information, such as your bank details, then that is a social engineering. Now, it is normally executed in different angles. Someone can write you an email, someone can call you. The strategy that they normally use mostly is to call you. So, hey, yes, this is the ICT guy from Riara, and I want to delete some files within your OC. Could you provide me with your password? Now, then the people who practice social engineering are very smart, right? They monitor your behaviors before they call you, before they write you an email. They know. For example, they know maybe where you live, they know your friends, they know your banks. So when they call you, they have some very close information that might maybe make you feel that these are the right people or legit people. So I know most of us have fallen victim. Personally, I've fallen victim of social engineering. Maybe to thwart this kind of attack is to perform some due diligence on what they have said. Don't be in a rush to give out information. Someone calls you, right? So it's better you hang up first and maybe check the number that has called you, check the email address. So don't be quick into issuing the information. Of course, we have these other software-based attacks such as viruses. We also have other malwares that we're going to look at. I normally say nowadays we don't have viruses, right? 15 years ago we had lethal viruses. A virus is a software that can encrypt some part of your data so that you cannot be able to access that particular data. Normally when you open a Word file, for example, you will see some kind of very funny characters. That is a virus. So you can't really, you have minimal chances of recovering that file if it is a virus, right? So viruses, as I can say, nowadays we have very nice operating systems. They are updated, upgraded. So yes, they are there, but it's very important that you have some antiviruses in place. We also have firewall, which could be a software or hardware. A firewall is basically a system that normally filters unwanted traffic. In case of an organization, for instance, we can implement a firewall to be a router. A router is a good type of a firewall, so that any other traffic that is generated that is not part of Riara can be blocked, right? And it also offers a way of streamlining communication so that unauthorized users cannot be able to access maybe some data and so on. So that's a firewall. And we can go on and on about these particular terminologies. Maybe some we are going to meet as we proceed. Now, a good security student should be able to understand these three concepts or basic security concepts. That is confidentiality. We also talk about integrity and, of course, availability. Confidentiality, for example, in fact, there's a third angle of this: authenticity, right? How do you determine that a particular information is authentic, right? You should add that into this, right? But confidentiality, we need only to allow authorized users to access our information, our networks, and so on. So if unauthorized users gain access to our data, then we say confidentiality has been compromised. The other is availability. Now, a good example of this is when you want, for example, to print, and you realize you cannot be able to print. So someone tells you now, but the printer is working, right? So what could be the problem? Chances are the hacker or someone has rerouted maybe your connection with this particular printer. So that point, when a user cannot be able to access a given resource within a network, then we say availability has been compromised. And the most lethal one is integrity. Integrity is whereby a hacker or some unauthorized user gets access into your message, for example, that you are transmitting online. Then they alter, or rather they edit that particular message, and then they release it to the recipient. So when you interfere with the original message, we say integrity has been compromised. And of course, the ripple effect of this is that privacy is not going to be interfered with, and of course the market perception. How will people see you as an organization if you keep on breaching, or if there are kind of numerous security breaches within your bank, for example, right? So people might end up leaving your organization for another organization. And to reinforce our security, also we need to have a physical security. So all these are the basic concepts of security. Now, this is an example. This diagram depicts an example of social engineering in action. So you can see here, my name is John from your local tel company. I'm working on behalf of ICT. So due to troubleshooting, I need you to give me your user ID. So these are some of just example of how social engineering works, right? So we are going to maybe look at other forms of attack. As I'd mentioned, when vulnerability meets threat, then attack happens. So this diagram just shows what we have already learned. So we mentioned about vulnerability. We have also looked at what a threat is. So when there's a conducive environment and there's a weakness in a system, then chances are a hacker is going to attack that particular system. Now, we have some ways of controlling this particular impact. So we have various security measures that you can put in place. You can use first firewalls. You can put firewalls to reduce the impact, right? You can also have antiviruses, user education. So there are quite a number of things that you can do to avoid the escalation of this particular attack. And that's what we refer to as responding to a given incident. So if you don't respond to an incident very, very fast, chances are be prepared to respond to a disaster. Talking about vulnerabilities, these are weaknesses within a system, as I'd mentioned. They could be as a result of design flaws, right, within the hardware or software, right? So if you purchase like a laptop which is not really meeting the quality standards that are needed, right, chances a hacker can get into your laptop using the firmware, the BIOS. And of course, we can talk about the software's operating system, right, and the various applications that you use. right? So this, and that's why we normally say that when you're using an application, ensure that it is a legit and valid application before you install it either within your mobile phone or within your computer. Also, vulnerabilities can result from implementation. I've talked about poor implementation of networks, for example, right? Especially when you are implementing what we refer to as an ad hoc. Ad hoc network is a network that is normally just set up very, very fast to achieve a certain purpose. So in such kind of ad hoc implementation, then chances are we can talk about vulnerabilities. And of course, we need to have a best or the best way of managing our networks or systems. The best way actually is to have a policy. A policy is a document or some set of procedures that are going to act as a checks and balances on how people use our systems, what are the penalties, right, and so on. So policies are like the guides towards ensuring that you have proper security management. So we mentioned about the vulnerabilities, so physical vulnerabilities. I gave an example. You need to lock your laptop. Normally, if you go to organization, you find that those particular workstations, the computers are normally locked, right? It's to just eradicate the vulnerability. Of course, even the password can act as a type of physical vulnerability, right? Hardware and software, we have so far looked at them. We can eliminate these vulnerabilities by updating our softwares, for example, right? Using the right patches. We also have vulnerabilities that comes from a transmission of messages, right? So you need to use VPNs. You need to use various encryption and decryption algorithms when you're transmitting sensitive data online, right? Just to ensure that we eradicate these vulnerabilities. And then you as a human being, what are you doing not to be vulnerable, right? When you're using computers or your mobile phone, what are some of the measures you need to put in place so that you become safe, right? So there are quite a number of things. First of all, you need to train yourself to understand what should be done. You need to know which websites to access and so on. Then you have threats. Threats also are from different categories. We can talk about natural threats. These are threats that you don't have any, you can't do anything about them. Like right now it's raining, so floods happen. And if floods happen, you can't control floods, right? It can decide to carry your servers, right? So is your server safe, right? Earthquakes, unintentional threats that comes from us. It could be accidental, it could just be acts of laziness, stupidity. We also have intentional. These are now the forms of attacks or hacks, threats that come from the hackers. They do them from a malicious point of view. We also have other threats like unauthorized access. It could be from an application or from malicious softwares that you're going to look at. Now, security attack we have already seen. These are actions that compromises the security of a network, information, and so on. What can we do to prevent attack? What can we do to detect these forms of attack? Or how can we recover from this attack? So we need to have the right security mechanism in place. Better still, we can reinforce our security by using the various security services. A service is something that enhances some or provides a layer of security within our computer. Like for example, if you're running different applications, it could be a database, so you can have a database security implemented so that if you enable that, and chances are a hacker wanted to access our database, the database security is going to block this particular hacker. So normally, if a hacker disables this security services, they will have a field day within your computer and they can do a lot of harm. We can also look at forms of attacks based on the security model that we talked about. The first diagram depicts the normal flow of communication. And this is what we normally intend to accomplish. We need to, as a sender, you always want to send your email and you are hopeful that this email is going to reach the right recipient. So that's what normally is what is expected. But if there's a breach of this, then we compromise confidentiality, we compromise integrity, we compromise availability, and of course authenticity. I talked about these, right? Now these are the four main forms of attacks that can always happen. How do you establish authenticity? Let's say I have sent you an email, for example, right? So the email is from me. What are some of the other measures that you can do to ensure that this particular communication is not fabricated? It's not coming from an authorized user or other people, right? Because someone can get access to my email, right, and send you an email, right? So what else can you do to confirm that this email is actually from the person who I know? So let's not just make things, of course it's something that we normally use. You just reply, you just communicate, but it's very, very important also to give some second way of confirming the authenticity. I won't really go through the integrity, confidentiality, and availability because I've already mentioned them. As you can see, interception. This is where a hacker kinds of eavesdrop or listens to communication line and collects very sensitive information, right? Interruption is an availability of resources. Modification is where you don't have the right data transmitted. It has been modified. So integrity has been compromised. So in a nutshell, we can summarize the two forms of attacks as either passive and active. A passive attack is, for instance, someone monitors your movement. So let's say you go to school at 8 a.m., then comes back at 5 a.m. So someone knows your movement. They know where you school, right? So they collect confidential information about you. So once they know that this is the pattern, this is your pattern, so you're not available at this point, and you use this particular means of mode of transport, now they activate their attacks, right? Now that is passive. Now the active is where now you come back home and you realize that your door has been broken into, or your house has been broken into, and they have stolen some equipment. So these are forms of attack. So passive attack is where the hacker takes time to collect vital information about you. You know, before you cry that you have lost your Instagram account, my friend, that person has been trailing you, right? So it's not happened. It doesn't happen overnight or once that, hey, my account has been hacked. That person who has hacked your account knows a lot more about you, right? So I was saying that even if you're sharing information online, try to limit the information that you're sharing. Maybe I'll mention some about this. So active attacks are very lethal. They deny you a chance of getting access to your platforms. It could be your social media platforms, your LMS, and so on. Now the security mechanism or measures that you can put in place have secure password, right, and username. Now it is a responsibility to ensure that your password is secure. Now let me just tell you, the most sought out thing when it comes to breaching of security is the password, right? So you need to make it strong as possible. You need to change it as frequent as possible. How you'll do that? Now it depends with how serious you are. Yeah, you say if you don't have available data, for example, you won't really bother securing your things. But the time that you'll realize that, hey, I have 1 million in my account, I have some crucial data in my laptop, that's when now it will ring a bell that now I need to do it, to practice these things. Have firewalls, I've already looked at that, and of course antiviruses. We normally say that the most valuable item is data. Your phone can be stolen, yes, you can purchase a new one. But if your data is gone, let's say now, for example, a good example is a research work, right? Or the research work that you're doing for the group work. So you realize that your data is missing and it's your group to do it, to present. How will you feel, right? So if it's a laptop, you'll quickly ask your colleague, kindly ask, get me the laptop, I just do the presentation and I'll return it to you. But what about the data? Can you now see the importance of securing our data? Now, most organizations invest a lot in actually securing their data. So they invest into the personnel. That's why you have the ICT guys, right? So within the ICT department, you can find the security, cybersecurity guy there. You can find you'll find the network admin there, the system admin. There are quite a number, just to ensure that they secure their system, right? They also purchase sophisticated hardware like the servers because of the data, right? So there are quite a number of things that you can do to offer the security. So ideally, also you need to update your software, as I mentioned. You can look at this particular checklist, which is very, very important, right? Ensure your password protected, ensure that you do backup regularly. Very, very important, right? So in case you lose your data, you can always retrieve it from another angle. So you can always store some part of your data online. You can use some other storage devices and so on. Update your softwares, have files, and so on. Data should be protected at all costs. Ensure that the confidentiality is maintained, integrity of data is maintained, and availability of data is maintained. We should be able to access this data when we need it, right? You should be able to you should not be able to share this particular data with someone who is not authorized. Confidentiality, right? No one should be able to modify this particular data. Integrity. So there are different threats to data. The data can be lost, can be damaged, especially when a hard disk crashes, right? Now these things that we are talking about, they normally happen and they lead to a lot of things. They can lead to attack, they can lead to someone losing their job. They look very simple, right? So we need to just practice them. Data can be deleted. Personally, there's a time I happened to have, in fact, overwriting. Let's just talk about overwriting. So you overwrite, and when you open the folder, you find that you have overwritten very crucial information. Now these things happen. They interfere with your data, right? And even hackers use them, right? So it can be destroyed by natural disasters, as I've seen. And of course, I normally say humans, we are the most vulnerable. Like the employees, yeah, they are the entry point. They can always cause a lot of harm into the organization. Maybe those people who feel that have not been paid, those ones who feel that I've stayed in this particular position for long, have not been promoted. So let me hit back. And especially the security, the ICT guys are known for this. Anyway, you can see this particular diagram showing the hardware is locked, especially in this digital age, whereby one individual can be able to purchase like over 100 devices and are connected to the network. You see, the more devices you connect to the network, the greater the chances of you being hacked into. Let's say you have 4 mobile phones, all are connected to the network. You have 2 laptops, you have connected them to the network. Should I just hack into one system, then I can be able to hack into the entire world, into all your devices, which should not be the case. Personnel security, end user security, very, very important. Staff should be trained so that you know what to do, right? Let's look at the various software-based threats, right? We talk about malicious softwares or malwares. Now, there are quite a number of malwares, right? We have so far looked at viruses, we have worms, right? So maybe on your own you can do some research on the latest malicious softwares. There are quite a number. Now, why are they many? It's very simple. When a hacker wants to execute or do something, they normally create this malicious software, right? So you realize that every malicious software that is outside there is intended to execute a specific purpose. So one is just to maybe monitor the keyboard keys or the keys that you always use to enter your password. Others are just there to see what applications you are using, right? Like for instance, ransomware is a very lethal malicious software that's normally used by hackers, especially when they want to gain access to some finance. So normally this form of attack happens mostly within the financial institutions, right? So they encrypt your hard disk until you give them some money, is when they release that particular system. And then also we talk about a rootkit. So this is a malware also that is designed to gain access to your system and have some administrative privilege. Now, if you get access to your, if you get access to your, if you get access to your, what can we say? I'm just responding to something here. Now, if you get access to your phone, or rather, you get access to your laptop, if you're not keen, you realize that there's some kind of a user account that has been created there. So you should always look at who else has an admin rights. Chances are maybe a hacker must have gotten into your system and they have created their own admin account. So every time they'll always just install softwares without your permission. So you'll wonder, where did these particular softwares come from, right? So it's very, very important that we ensure that we remove these rootkits by using antiviruses. Now, we also have backdoor virus. A backdoor virus, as the name suggests, is a form whereby a hacker creates another door that they use to enter into your system, right? So this malicious software can always be used to infect your system, right? So that is a very dangerous virus. And of course, we have keyloggers. Keyloggers enables a hacker to to understand the kind of passwords or other serial numbers that you're using. You also have spoofing. Spoofing is faking of email addresses, right? That tricks users into passing some sensitive information like your passwords. And of course, you have sniffer. We talked about confidentiality being compromised. So these are programs that monitors your network, what you're communicating, and so on. You have seen what social engineering is, and of course, phishing is setting up of an non-existent website or fake websites that look like legit website. This is an attack that normally people fall victim of. I remember there's a time where people wanted to go for vacation at the coast. So there's one restaurant that is well known. So a hacker just decided to set up a similar website so people could be able to book online, right? So the site was actually active for just a period of 2 days. Then the hacker, after collecting the money, he pulled down that particular website. So what happens? That is a phishing kind of attack. So sometimes don't just see a familiar logo and say that this is the legit thing, right? Do some due diligence. And farming is also another form of attack, where you can always be redirected. Like you are looking for Yara in a website, of course, you are redirected again. It's kind of related to phishing, to another website that's not correct. Trojan horse, we also need to understand that there are some programs or applications within our computer that normally appears legit, right? But after a while, you'll realize that they are fake, right? So that could be a Trojan. A trapdoor, as the name suggests, it allows you to compromise your system, right? So they have some kind of they look at some vulnerabilities into the system and they utilize that. A bomb, as the name suggests, it monitors your system for some condition. Let's say, for example, you have installed some online banking application. So it monitors when you're going to just click on that and open that application. So once you open it, it starts monitoring. And then it activates or sends data back to the hacker. So it just monitors or does something when a particular criteria is met. Very hard to detect. And of course, you have talked about the viruses. Now, what is a worm? A worm can be seen as a brother or a sister to the virus. Worms are not that lethal. The only problem with worms is that the worms normally creates different copies into your computer. Like, for example, different copies of files. Let's say, for example, you have a Word document. Let's say you have like 5 Word documents. Then when you wake up tomorrow in the morning, you have millions of these same copies of these documents. So what worms does is that they occupy, once they make copies of these particular files, they will utilize a lot of space within your computer. So you'll start complaining that, you see, I'm running out of space, and my laptop is actually a new one with 1 TB of space, right? So that is a worm. Now, port scanning. Ideally, port scanning is a mechanism, or rather, do you understand, for example, if a thief wants to break into your house, what they do? They scan. They check whether there's an open window. They look at whether the door can be broken into. So scanning is actually a trick, or rather an action that the hacker uses to check if the system is vulnerable. So if they realize that there's some weakness in the system, they attack. A denial of service is this is actually an attack to the availability. So we looked at this availability concept. So when a user cannot be able to perform some tasks, right, like printing, you say, okay, I can't get access to the OC, that is a denial of service attack. What are the consequences, therefore, right, of these particular breaches? The consequences are dire and there are many. You lose your client if you are a business, even if you are in business. People can sue you, right? Especially organizations such as hospital. If a hacker exposes the health documents of your patients, this patient can always sue you, because it's a responsibility to protect what? The patient's data. Financial loss. We looked at various organizations such as banks. If they can't be able to protect your money, you lose them. Partnership will walk away. Collaborations will not be there. You lose your licenses. Government will revoke your permits if they realize that your organization keeps on breaching this security. And of course, your competitors will take over. So you lose your strategic and competitive advantage. You can also lose your data. People will use your computer resources like your CPU for when you check your computer. Sometimes you're not doing anything much with your laptop, for example, but you can just feel that this particular computer is overworking, right? It's like it is processing something behind the scene, right? So that is a good example. A hacker could be maybe mining bitcoins using your CPU, right? Reputation loss. I mean, if your name is outside there, that you see, you're like, there's a time, I don't know which university it happens. So it's like, oh, that university, they hacked into their Facebook, they hacked into what? So like people start. I mean, that is a reputation, and of course, identity theft, right? We look at a situation whereby someone takes your email, your mobile phone number, so they present themselves as you, and so on. So ultimately, we can also look at security within the social media, and talking about identity theft happens a lot, and that's why I always say that take note of the information that you share outside there. You see, for a hacker, for them, they are very patient. Hackers are very patient people. If they realize that you have valuable stuff, they'll always check your Instagram. They check whether they can find your email address within your Facebook. They'll check your TikTok. A story is told about, it's not really a story, it happened, about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining. There's this guy who did a TikTok video, but he didn't know that he was exposing his his encryption keys, right, within that particular video, right? So someone could just check on the video, and they zoomed into that particular key, and they swept clean his wallet, all right, Bitcoin wallet, right? What we're saying is that sharing of information is not bad, but you have to be very careful. Fake requests from spam profiles, don't know. Nowadays, people are looking for followers, so you don't care a lot about who is following you. So, but you need just to be extra cautious of who is asking to follow you, and of course, social sharing. We are always we are in a social. That's why we talk about social media. It's good to share information, but sharing crucial information such as maybe what you purchased, your exact location, right? I used to share a lot of information before I knew the risk. Nowadays, I rarely share a lot of information, right? In fact, what I normally do is to present myself. I normally create a different copy of myself, right? So you might look for John Sagemo, but you might not find me. But I just operate using some, so that at least I don't use my main or myself, right? So even if you're creating TikTok account, you can use some name, because what you're going to be anyway. Social sharing. Anyway, profile hacking also is something that happens a lot. So you lose your Instagram. Check about your password, the passwords that you use. Are they? We can reinforce that. We're going to look at what you can do. How do you determine that this is a fake app or a malicious link, right? So before you install an app, maybe you can do some background check. Check the reviews, the ratings. Check the developer's website. Look who else has installed, and so on. Malicious links. Before you click on a link, think, right? There's no hurry of clicking on a link. You see, once you click on a link, there's nothing like you are going to undo, because these links could be some kind of they could be carrying these malwares. So once you click on them, on the background, they could download very harmful softwares, right? Better still, the websites that you access. How do you access a secure website? So to prevent this, Fraudulent risks, you can use strong password, very, very important. Ensure that you reinforce two-factor authentication. Nowadays, most platforms actually reinforces this. So it's a must you supply maybe a backup or an additional email address or your phone number, so that if someone accesses your platform, you can always get a notification via your email or via your what? Via your phone. Of course, this is an advanced security feature, but people can always go around it, right? So if I know that you have a lot of money in your account, I can swap your SIM, right? So that I go behind this authentication, right? But it's a bit advanced, so it can take time for someone to be able to do that. Do some proper privacy settings within your social media accounts, right? If it is Instagram, you can reinforce that. Even within your browsers, right? You can reinforce the security or privacy settings by looking at the privacy settings and security. Like, for example, who is able to see your mutual friends? Who is able to see the content that you are uploading? Avoid accepting unknown profile requests, right? But hey, I know, guys, you are out for the followers. As I'd mentioned, there are those people who follow you for various reasons. There are those who follow you because of your content, but there are those ones who follow you just to see, they're just waiting for a very slim opportunity or a chance for you to make a simple mistake. And there you go, right? So think twice before clicking on any links. I've already mentioned that. Identify fake apps before installation. How do I do that? I've already said that. Think before you share. There's no hurry, right? There's no hurry of telling us where you are by sharing the location, right? You see, what happens online have some kind of correlation with what happens offline. So you might think that you're doing something online, but the consequences are often found or implemented offline, right? Like, someone can come and break into your house because of the information you shared online. People have also lost their life, right? So it's a very important thing that we need to look at. We also talked about policy that help us manage our systems. So policy is a very important document that communicates a common vision of how security should be handled throughout an organization. When something happens within an organization, especially, let's say, an attack has happened, it's always the policy that's normally checked. What does the policy say? People should not use the flash disk. So who used the flash disk? It is person X, right? Anyway, what are the policies when it comes to training of staff and so on? So policy has a lot of things. It communicates the purpose. It shows us how to manage the physical security, how to manage the user IDs. So if you go to Riara, they'll tell you this is your username, this is your password, right? Network security, how network security is going to be implemented. System security, how various testing is going to happen, right? Various auditing, how this particular auditing is going to be done periodically, just to ensure that any vulnerabilities has been removed, and so on. Lastly, we have the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. Now, this framework is normally used by various organizations just to help us reinforce our security amongst the various devices or other organizations that we are working. So first, you need to do some inventory. It's going to be very awkward if someone tells you what was here in this particular room after the fires engulfed everything. So can you be able to take inventory? So you need to take inventory and tell us, in this particular laptop. I have this application, this laptop costed this, and so on. Protect, have various protective mechanisms. And I think this is the first procedure. Don't wait until there's a disaster. Detect, we have different intrusion detection systems that can always send some alert, like smoke detection, right? So you can get an alert that maybe some building is on fire, or the lab is on fire, or someone is breaking into the network. You can get an email alert. The response, very, very important. I talked about the incident response and disaster response. So how you respond to an incident will determine whether you're going to respond to what? To a disaster. So when you see something funny, respond very, very fast. Otherwise, if you overlook that, then someone is going to tell you, my friend, you know what? The whole system is down. Recover. What are the various business continuity plans that will help you recover very quickly? Do you have the right backup systems? Do you have the right business continuity plans, and so on, so that when something happens within this particular organization, you can always know where to proceed from. So that is the whole concept of introducing the cybersecurity. So at least you have an understanding of what you should do, what countermeasures, what is the role of practicing the various cybersecurity elements, and so on.